Hello, future people, and welcome to Great Uncle John's weekly video log. This very well may be episode 40. It is October the 8th, 2018, Thanksgiving Day here in Canada. This year we gathered at the home of my son and his partner, who were hosting their very first Thanksgiving. It was wonderful, and today we all went over to my sister's place for another meal. I feel I have a lot to be thankful for: good health, great family, and friends. All my needs are met, and I have sufficient comforts, and I'm cognizant that this sweetness could end instantly and unexpectedly for almost any number of reasons. So I'm thankful that hasn't happened yet. We were in Nova Scotia last week, and a neighbor told us about a guy who slipped on his cement steps and smacked his head, and that was it. There was a little internet meme that said, "Life is short. Spend as much time as possible arguing with strangers on the internet about politics." It's like shouting into the wind, my late mother-in-law used to say. But on the other hand, I guess the lesson, if there is one, that we want to find is to live an important life, do important things every day, grand dreams and visions, and don't be wasting your time in the internet. But I don't buy that. First of all, I think social media is so important because it is interactive. You can create and share content, no matter how inane, such as Great Uncle John's weekly video log, and react with other creators. You may not think of a Facebook comment as content, but I do. It's a form of expression, a way to communicate with a larger world. And reading and watching TV and listening to radio has been mostly a passive experience, but now we have a chance to make it 3D. You know what I'm talking about, future people? The interactivity has grown beyond what I can dream, and I'm sure has spawned other social problems in your future world. But here in yesterday land, it all seems to be moving very fast, and for people who may not have even owned a computer or had access to the internet 15 years ago, it's been a major culture shock. Social media has certainly ramped up people's opinions on social issues. I think they were always there, but Facebook and Twitter and YouTube are megaphones, and you don't have to put on pants to use it even. I will admit to enjoying a bit of trolling now and again. CBC comments on Facebook are certainly a favorite of mine. Also, I spend far too much time on a group called Christians Against Dinosaurs, which I find hard to explain why I get such amusement acting stupid on the internet. But again, for me, it beats passively watching TV. At any rate, I do other things while I argue with strangers on the internet. This past week, we went down to Nova Scotia to check on the property there. We have had an Airbnb guest coming in on Friday, and after a misunderstanding with our cleaner, it was important for me to go down and put my eyes on the place, and everything was fine. We did a few chores and mostly hung out and read and watched DVDs, and we spent a few days at the house and then went into Sydney, the town where I grew up in the 70s and early 80s. It was looking really good. The cruise ship docked there now, and I don't know if that is the source of the money, but there were lots of stores open downtown and lots of cars on the road, and my old street looked good, Leaside Drive. I'm glad to see them doing okay. And out in the world, well, let's see, the CAQ, the CAQ, Coalition Action Quebec, or Avenir Quebec, or something like that, won a majority government in Quebec. I don't know much about them, except they're described as center-right on the news, but the first policy I heard them announce is they were going to ban the use of religious symbols in the workplace and deport any immigrants that don't conform to French values, whatever those are. So it's really an anti-Muslim agenda, and this sounds more far-right to me. I mean, Joe Clark was center-right, and it saddens me to see this sort of racism creeping into Canada. I suppose it has always been here, but the rise of Trump has emboldened them. Muslims in particular seem to be the targets, and there is a lot of support for this, obviously, in the population. This is where, I guess, arguing with strangers on the internet comes into play. Though the strangers on the internet vote, although, there's no dialogue in social media. It's just ranting and polemics, so no minds are ever changed. But you add your voice to the side you support and use your megaphone. It makes you feel part of a larger group and lets you gauge where sentiment is at in society. Perhaps social media is all a part of populism and what fuels it, although I'm not sure that populism itself has to be bad. Wiki defines it in politics. Populism refers to a range of approaches which emphasize the role of the people and often juxtapose this group against the elite. There is no single definition of the term, which developed in the 19th century and has been used to mean various things since that time. Few politicians or political groups describe themselves as populists, and in political discourse, the term is often applied to others pejoratively. Within social science and other social sciences, political science and other social sciences, various different definitions of populism have been used, although some scholars propose rejecting the term altogether. A common framework for interpreting populism is known as the ideation approach. This defines populism as an ideology which presents the people as a moral good force against the elite, who are perceived as corrupt and self-serving. Populists differ in how the people are defined, but it can be based along class, ethnic, or national lines. And populists typically present the elite as comprising the political, economic, cultural, and media establishment, all of which are depicted as a homogenous entity and accused of placing the interests of other groups, such as foreign countries or immigrants, above the interests of the people. According to this approach, populism is a thin ideology which is combined with other more substantial thick ideologies such as nationalism, liberalism, or socialism. Thus, populists can be found at different locations along the left-right political spectrum, and there is both left-wing populism and right-wing populism. So maybe populism, this desire to focus on the needs of the common person, which is all good and proper, isn't the problem. Maybe it is instilling more compassion into common people for their brothers and sisters that don't look and sound like them. Maybe that's the challenge. And how can that be done? Trolling Facebook and arguing with strangers about politics on the internet, of course. I barely want to talk about Trump in the USA. I'm reading Fear, but Woodward, which is by Woodward, which is a bit of a tough slog. Again, there are no surprises about Trump. He is what he is. These people harness currents in society, fear, anger, stupidity, and use it to keep themselves in power. They will say or do anything, it seems. It is white nationalist populism that is only really concerned with the white Christian man. I think I will just hide my head in the sand for the next 2 months or so, or the next, I guess, month or so until the midterms are over. I really believe that this is the most important election ever. If the Republicans aren't dislodged from Congress, it will be the end of American democracy. I mean, if people can't be motivated to change by what Trump and the Republican senators have done, if they support what Trump stands for, or if they just don't care, which I think probably is the case in the majority of people. If the millennials just don't give a shit and don't vote, I think that is it. Whatever happens in the U.S. always crosses the border into Canada. I mean, it's easy to say, why are you worried about that? It's American politics. But really, we echo what happens in the United States, sometimes a year or two later, but it always happens. So, the New York Times reported this week that Trump committed some pretty massive criminal fraud over many years with his father, and it wasn't even a huge story in the news. It coincided with the other culture war battle, which was the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. So it didn't get much media play. If all these things, all that Trump has said and done, doesn't convince Americans to fix their shit, then what is left? I think chaos and revolution and dissolution eventually. The fascists will try to grab power even further, and I believe there is enough of a left-wing populism to push back hard, and I hope there is, but Imagine a country like USA or Canada where, abortion is illegal and Muslims and Mexicans are harassed and deported and homosexuals are harassed. And this is actually happening now. You don't have to imagine it. This may make radical white nationalists excited, but it seems horrific to many people, hopefully most. Anyway, I've brought myself to the point of despair once again with my vlog, so I will sign off and go count my blessings again, but something is telling me I should get back into survivalism and prepping, another one of my favorite Facebook groups, because maybe things will go from bad to worse by next month. Future people, am I tripping for nothing? Anyway, I hope you are all okay out there in future land, and we'll see you soon. Take care.